Tokyovice, a crime drama series from HBO Max, offers a gritty and unbridled account of the world's most populated metropolis, exploring the city's criminal underground from the unique and thorough perspective of a beat reporter of American origin. The series is based on the 2009 memoir Tokyo Vice, an American reporter on the police beat in Japan by Jake Adelstein, whose fictional counterpart is portrayed by Ansel Elgort. In the series, Jake comes to Tokyo to make a name for himself and eventually draws the attention of both the police and the Yakuza because of his work as a reporter. While the show predominantly focuses on Jake, it does sometimes veer towards Samantha, Rachel Keller, a hostess working in the Kabukicho district and another American expatriate, and Sato, Sho Kasamatsu, a mid-rank Yakuza member who might turn out to be Jake's gateway into the world of Japanese organized crime. Here is everything you need to know about the ending of Tokyo Vice Episode 3. Tokyo Vice Episode 1, 2, and 3 recap. The first 3 episodes of Tokyo Vice revolve around Jake's introduction to the seedy underbelly of Tokyo, inhabited by journalists, police officers, Yakuza members, and sex workers, as well as the Japanese news industry. He is originally from Missouri, the son of a coroner. Accompanying his father to his work instilled in him a great curiosity about how forensic science and police investigation work. After transferring from the University of Missouri to Sophia University in Tokyo, he studied Japanese literature for 3 years. Despite botching up an entrance exam, Jake lands a job at the Maicho Shimbun, a prominent newspaper with 12 million circulations every day. At work, he finds great friends in Trendy and Tintin, 2 fellow journalists who also get assigned to beat reporting. They work under subcap Imi Maruyama, who, in turn, reports to Baku, a man with ultra-nationalist beliefs. One of Jake's early assignments involves reporting on a murder, but as he refers to the incident as murder, he gets admonished by Baku. Despite this, he starts to make a connection between the alleged murder and the self-immolation case that happens a few days later, realizing that both people borrowed from shadowy groups against exorbitant interests. He initially tries to follow a police officer named Miyamoto, but the man soon turns out to be too difficult to work with for Jake. However, he draws the interest of Hiroto Katajiri, Ken Watanabe, a detective in the organized crime division who works on the alleged murder case. Jake gets the chance to accompany the police as they raid the stronghold of the Tozawa Yakuza family, following an altercation at a club under the protection of their rival, Chiharakai Ishida, and arrest 3 gang members. Katajiri lets Jake write an article on it, which becomes his first published piece. Jake meets both Samantha and Sato in Kabukicho, where most of the story is set. The former is extremely elusive about her past and seems to be saving up to establish roots in Tokyo. Sato is a Chiharakai Ishida affiliate who works under Yoshihiro Kume, who, in turn, serves under Hitachi Ishida. With Koichi Tanaka, the leader of Chiharakai, currently indisposed, Ishida is the de facto head of the family. Jake's encounter with Samantha and Sato potentially sets up a love triangle as well. Towards the end of the episode, Matsuo, one of Samantha's clients, takes photos of her from a distance while she is at her home. At first glance, he appears to be a stalker, but it's possible that he is somehow linked to her mysterious past. Why does the Yakuza kidnap Jake? Where is he being taken? After beating up a fellow member of his crime family for saying abusive words about Samantha, Sato atones for his mistake by telling Ishida about Jake. While we are not shown the full extent of the interaction, we can safely assume that Sato mentions Jake's affiliation with the police. Earlier in the episode, the officers came to visit Ishida, during which they neither consumed food nor drank any beverage. This is likely due to the corruption and bribing suspicion within the ranks of the police. The officers probably fear that if they eat or drink anything in the company of the Yakuza, they will be suspected of passing information to the crime family. At least for now, Ishida probably doesn't harbor any ill intent toward Jake. The Gaijin is the one who reports on the arrests of the members of the Tozawa family. If anything, he will likely attempt to create a mutually beneficial relationship with Jake, in which he might offer to expose the inner workings of his organization to Jake, in exchange for the reporter helping him with the police. Who is Tozawa? The first sequence of the series is set in 2001. The narrative later shifts to 1999 and seems to work its way forward. In 2001, Jake and Katajiri meet high-ranking members of the Tozawa family who warn him against continuing his investigation on the head of the family. The said leader makes his first appearance in episode 3 and seems to be suffering from a severe health-related issue. Although series creator J.T. Rogers stated that none of the characters is directly based on Tadamasa Goto, a real-life former Yakuza member and alleged head of Goto Gumi family, Tozawa seems to share some resemblance to the so-called John Gotti of Japan. In 2008, the real Jake Adelstein put out an expose in the Washington Post about Goto, claiming that the FBI had assisted the crime boss in traveling to the U.S. for a liver transplant at UCLA. He mentioned in the same article that he received threats from Goto's underlings for the article. Is Tokyovice a true story? Yes, Tokyovice is primarily based on a true story, but the said truth has been heavily dramatized and fictionalized during the adaptation process. The series is the web adaptation of the real-life Jake Adelstein's 2009 memoir Tokyovice, an American reporter on the police beat in Japan. Initially, Adelstein's book was supposed to be made into a film. Adelstein and Rogers transformed the former's book into a story fit for the big screen, and Rogers then developed the screenplay. Daniel Radcliffe was even reportedly cast to portray Adelstein, while Anthony Mandler was set to direct. Production was meant to begin in 2014 in Tokyo, but it never did. In 2019, production company Endeavor Content began developing the project as a series. Mann came on board to direct the pilot episode and serve as an executive producer. Mann's involvement provides Tokyovice with somewhat of a connection with his 1980s TV series, Miami Vice, and its 2006 cinematic adaptation. This is reportedly the first time Mann visited Japan for work. My admiration of Japanese aesthetics is such that it's difficult for me to walk 100 meters down the road there, the Collateral director told the New York Times. I will become captivated by the design on the cover of a manhole. Then take another 3 steps and stop to admire the intricate masonry of a curb. So I am hopeless in Tokyo. While preparing for his character, Elgert consulted James Quealy, a Los Angeles Times reporter who covers crime and policing in Southern California. Mann also got him to write an article on a real police report. The Maicho Shimbun, the newspaper Jake works for in the show, is fictional. The real-life Jake Adelstein was employed at the Yomiuri Shimbun, reportedly the largest newspaper in the world in terms of circulation, for 12 years. The show's time frame also doesn't match that of the experiences of the real Adelstein, who worked at Yomiuri from 1993 to 2005. But, in the show, Jake begins working at Maicho in 1999. But the show correctly depicts that he was the first foreign reporter at his workplace. Hiroto Katajiri is based on Adelstein's real-life mentor, Chiaki Sekiguchi of the Saitama Police Department, who reportedly passed away in the late 2000s. Watanabe spoke to Adelstein about the police officer who was a father figure to him to know more about the character he is portraying in the show. Apparently he was a mild-mannered and sweet man, but when he dealt with the Yakuza, his brutal side came out, Watanabe said to the New York Times. I tried to capture that duality. Adelstein is a prominent specialist on the Yakuza and the criminal underworld of Japan, and has extensively published articles on various aspects of crime both within and outside Japan. In 2008, about 3 years after leaving Yomiuri, Adelstein wrote an expose in the Washington Post about Tadamasa Goto, a leading Yakuza figure. In it, he mentioned that the FBI had made a deal with Goto to let him enter the U.S. for a liver transplant, which he was supposed to get at the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA. Although Rogers apparently stated that there is no character in the show directly based on Goto, Tozawa, Ayumi Tanida, the head of the Tozawa family, does share a certain resemblance with the former Yakuza boss. Ultimately, as Rogers, who is actually a childhood friend of Adelstein, maintains, Tokyovice is a work of fiction based on a true story. Tokyovice is not a biography, nor documentary, he said to the New York Times. It's inspired by real events, but it's fictional.